Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and I have to give you a fair warning up front. This is not a picking sides. I'm not going to declare which type of gamer is a real gamer or the better type of gamer. That's not what this video is. I'll make that clear in the description as best I can. This is just a description of the two most common divides in the gamer culture. So, the title is Casual versus Hardcore Gamers. But um, everyone has a different definition of what constitutes a casual gamer, and it's often used as a derogatory term, which it will not be in this video. Um, and different people have different definitions of what is classified as a hardcore gamer, which is sometimes used as a superior term, which I'm not going to use that in this context in this video either. I think both types of gamers, and there's other types of gamers, but these are the two most common. So I think they're both valid, and whichever type of gamer you are, you're valid. And that's what you're going to get out of this video. But for those who maybe aren't familiar with the vernacular, you've seen the terms tossed around, and you're curious what a gamer who has been a gamer her entire life thinks, keep watching. There's a third type of gamer, the retro gamer, but that's a totally different thing. And again, the retro gamer can be divided between casual and core gamer as well. But we're just going to talk about these two broadly speaking with some examples and some exceptions because there's always exceptions. And at the end or towards the end, I'll give you a better understanding of which type of gamer I am or consider myself to be. So, a casual gamer can mean basically two different things. It can be a gamer who only games casually, someone who plays like Candy Crush on the weekend on their days off, or someone who only plays Pokemon, when they're on a bus or on a road trip to grandma's or whatever. Or it can also refer to a type of game, the quote unquote casual game. I'm using quotes here. The gamer who prefers the more pick up and play casual type of games. This is generally speaking how the term is usually used. When it's used or lobbed at the first type of casual gamer, the one who plays casually, regardless of what type of game they play, it's usually intended to be a dismissive of that type of gamer. Like, oh, you're not a real gamer. You don't play, 900 hours of your favorite game, so you're not a real gamer. That's usually how it's used. That's bullshit. I don't use it that way. I lean more towards a casual gamer is someone who either or they either play casually regardless of what type of game they play, but they're not serious, they're not devoted to gaming, they don't live for gaming, but they still enjoy it. Or like I said, they prefer the more casual type of game. Now, what constitutes a casual type of game is contentious. So I'm going to give my definition of a casual type of game with some examples. And again, calling a game a casual game is not a derogatory. It's not a ding against that type of game. It's just a description like first person shooter is a type of game. It doesn't mean, oh, it's a bad game because it's a first person shooter. It just means it is a first person shooter. So if I call a game a casual game, I mean that it's, meant to be played casually by and large. There's always exceptions to every game. You know, esports gamers and speedrunners can make any game competitive and turn it into a core game. So let's get that out of the way. Although I'll do a video on esports and competitive gaming down the road because I actually did a whole investigative journalism series on esports back when I was still a journalist. So I learned a lot about esports. And I have friends who are esports gamers and Twitch streamers. So that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. So a casual game to me, and this is just to me, my understanding, is a game with broad appeal that is, um, I will use the word accessible to anyone. It's basically a game that is designed to be enjoyed or easily picked up and played by any skill level, any age, any demographic. There's no expectation that you should be an expert gamer to play this game. So, some examples of casual games: Tetris, Dr. Mario, puzzle games, obviously, Pokemon. I classify those as casual games because they're pretty easy to pick up and play. And while a casual game can have depth for the gamer who wants to dig in, the depth is not necessary. It's not essential to the gameplay. You can play it casually and it works. Some other examples would be the Mario series, all of them. That includes Smash Brothers. It includes Mario RPG, Paper Mario, Mario Party, Mario Sports, Mario Odyssey, etc., etc., etc. Those are basically casual games. They have depth for the gamer who wants it, but the gamer who just wants to pick up and play, those are pretty much the easiest games to pick up and play. Which is why a lot of times casual games tend to be rated E for everyone, or E10 plus, E7, etc. They tend to have broad appeal. Minecraft is a big example. Now, I would put Fortnite under the list of casual games, because it can be picked up and played by anyone. Even though it's kind of, I guess, is it a first-person shooter? I've never played it, so I guess but it can also be a core game. Same with Super Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers is a casual game in that anyone can pick it up, play, have fun with it, beat the game. It's not very difficult. It has adjustable difficulty settings, which is an accessibility feature I favor in video games. I prefer games that have accessibility features because I have disabilities and video games are hard for me. So I want a game that, if you want it to be hard, gives you the option to be hard for you. But I also don't want it to be hard, and I'm grateful when it gives me the option to not be hard, which is why I like the sliding scale of games like Minecraft or, Mortal Kombat has a good sliding scale. Now, some types of games that might not seem like casual games at first, but they kind of are. I just mentioned fighting games: Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, Virtua Fighter, etc. I consider those casual games, even though they are often equated with the competitive gaming scene, and they do have more depth than, Tetris, which has like no depth at all. They're not as deep as like, a Souls-like or a Skyrim, something like that. But they have enough depth for those who want it. Now, some people erroneously distinguish casual games as kids' games and core games, hardcore games, as mature rated games or adult games. I did not make that distinction. Mortal Kombat is an M rated game with gore from the word go. It's still a casual game in my estimation. You can treat it like a hardcore game, but it really isn't. It really isn't. So then this begs the question: what is a hardcore game? Again, a hardcore game to me has two possible definitions. Possible definition number one: a game that, again, is for more advanced players. It's a more difficult game. It's got more complex gameplay, more complex themes, storylines. It deals with adult issues, things like that. These do happen to usually be M-rated or teen-rated games. A lot of examples would be your role-playing games, your strategy games, your what are they called? Your first-person shooters, your story-driven games. A lot of your, like, The Last of Us as an example. Your survival horror games. Excuse me, like Resident Evil, House of the Dead, etc. Those type of games, Silent Hill. But they can also be, the other definition can be, for a hardcore game, can be your game that is designed for not necessarily a more advanced player, but for a more committed player, someone who wants to spend more time on the game and dig in a little deeper. Um, you know, so this would be something like, trying to think of some examples. The Legend of Zelda, I would use it as example as an example of a hardcore game that is, yes, accessible, but not as easily adjustable in the difficulty as other games. Metroid is another one. Star Fox is another one. The Star Wars games tend to fall under this camp. Um, Halo, Gears of War, Assassin's Creed, Diablo. Those are some examples. Call of Duty, pretty much all of them. Grand Theft Auto is another example. Now, being an M-rated or adult-themed game doesn't automatically make you a core game or a hardcore game. And being a E-rated or kid-friendly game doesn't automatically make you a, casual game. Some examples of kid-friendly games that are core games, I've already mentioned Zelda. Donkey Kong Country is an example of a hardcore game that is easy to pick up and play, but extremely difficult to master. And if you beat Donkey Kong Country without cheats, you have bragging rights. Some other examples would be the Mega Man series, the Double Dragon series, pretty much any beat 'em up would fall under that camp. Hardcore games that are rated E for the most part. Um, Again, like I said, any beat 'em up, so that includes the Streets of Rage games. The shoot 'em ups like Contra, Gunstar Heroes, Metal Slug, etc. Those I would classify as hardcore games for the same reason. The Ninja Turtles games, even though they're definitely kid friendly and yes, easy to pick up and play, but extremely difficult to master by and large. Again, the Star Wars games are another example. Anyone can play Star Wars, and most people are going to get through the first level of a Star Wars game. But it takes a dedicated gamer to beat the game or to get past the third level of a Star Wars game. Like I said, but we're talking in broad generalizations. There are always exceptions. So, what are some exceptions? I'm glad you asked. Um, let's go back to Mario for a second. Um, most of the Mario games, including the Mario RPGs, Paper Mario, Dr. Mario, etc., Mario Party, I would put under the casual gamer fare because they're anyone can pick up and play them, and with a little patience and a little practice, pretty much anyone can beat them. There are very few Mario games I haven't beat. They're not that difficult. They can have difficult moments, but like I said, with a little repetition and some planning, they're not that difficult. You can, they can be overcome. But an example of a Mario game that I do consider, and it's the only one I consider a hardcore game, is Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, which was actually produced by Square Enix or Squaresoft back in the day, not Nintendo. I'm not taking a dig or shot at Nintendo. I want to put this out there. I actually do love Nintendo. I have to make that very clear because some people think I don't. Um, Even though I have issues with their business practices and some of their wonky hardware, I still love their games and a lot of their intellectual property. I want to make that very clear. I prefer PlayStation, but I'm going to get into why in a minute because it might surprise you. It actually might surprise you. But obviously, my experiences, again, are mostly limited to what I've played or what I've seen other people play. Now, you can be a casual gamer who only plays hardcore games if you only play them casually, like you only play on the weekend for like an hour at a time, assuming the game has, sporadic save features. You don't, you play Minecraft, you want to, or no, let's go, let's use a better example. You play Skyrim, which is definitely a hardcore game, but you only play it casually for an hour at a time once a week. You just do a little farming, you do a little, maybe you do one or two side quests, you do a little, trading at the marketplace, and then you turn it off. You save, you turn it off. That's a thing you can do. You can likewise be a hardcore gamer and only play casual games. You can be the type of gamer who 100% every Mario game. 100% every Pokemon game. You can be the weirdo who beats Tetris. I know. It it can be. You can be the competitive gamer who can run circles around everybody in Mario Kart, or always beat Mario Party with like 12 stars and everybody else has like 1 or 2 stars. So you can be a hardcore gamer who only plays casual games. You can be a casual gamer who only plays hardcore games. So they're interchangeable. There's some overlap. Um, I think most gamers, your average gamer, falls somewhere in the middle. You know, they like a little bit of both. Sometimes they get obsessed with some games that they play obsessively, endlessly to 100%, but also they play other games just casually. I think that's your typical gamer. Um, your gamer who only plays on the weekend on their days off, that's not necessarily your typical gamer. Now, it can be if it's someone who's like they're really into games and they love gaming, but they've got a family, they've got kids, they've got a job, they got responsibilities as an adult. Their time is limited. But when they are gaming, they're hardcore gamers, even if their time is limited. So that's also a possibility. Now, what about sports games? Football, basketball, hockey, etc. Those are prime examples of games that are both casual games and hardcore games. Because again, they're accessible, easy to pick up and play, not too terribly difficult to master, but they are deep and complex enough that if you master them, you can do things with them that the casual gamer can't. Um, the casual gamer might play a game of Madden NFL football and win, you know, uh, at a reasonable, like, 17-13 or something like that. A good back and forth game. The hardcore gamer is going to be running trick plays and they're going to have like 97-6. They're just going to blow out the competition in unrealistic, unbelievable ways, but they're going to do it because they're like so good at the game. So that's another distinction. Um, where do I fall? I fall right in the middle. Um, in years past, I would have been classified more as a hardcore gamer on both accounts. I tended to prefer the harder, more complex, more mature games, you know, stuff like Castlevania, Mortal Kombat, um, Doom, Resident Evil, I said Castlevania, stuff like that, Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls, Diablo, stuff like that. But I also really love the casual games. I really love the Mario games, Mario Party, Mario Kart, New Mario Brothers, whatever, Zelda, which I put more on the core gamer side. But I also you know, I liked to play Zelda, but I didn't beat it. I liked to play Donkey Kong Country, but I didn't play to beat it. I just played it to see how far I could get, you know? So I played some games fairly casually, even if they were core games. But I also played some games quite obsessively. Mario World, Mario 64, um, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, um, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. I 100%ed Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on the GameCube, on the Xbox, and the PS2. I had all three versions of the game, and I got 100% on all three versions of the game because I got obsessed with that game and I couldn't get enough of it. I just love that fucking game. Now, more recently, I still consider myself more of a mix. I don't play core games as much as I used to. I do lean more towards casual games, but not always. I still play No Man's Sky, which is a hardcore game. Um, I still play Diablo 3, which is a hardcore game. But I play those games casually. I pop in for a little bit, do a task or two, and then I save and get out. Uh, but I play Minecraft, which is a casual game, obsessively. Meaning I can play Minecraft for multiple hours at a time, or I can just pop in and play it for 30 minutes, save, and I'm done. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to touch on the difference between these two types of gamers and the retro gamer. Now, the retro gamer, you still have the distinction within retro gamers. You have the retro gamer who's into the core games, and you have the retro gamer who's into the casual games. But also, retro games change the definition of what is a core game or a casual game. Modern gamers are going to consider A Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, or Super Metroid as casual games because they're quite primitive by today's standards. But the retro gamer or the gamer who grew up with these games might still consider them core games because they are. Maybe not by today's standards, but by the standard of the time that they were released, they were, and so to a certain extent still are. Now, I'm also a retro gamer in that when I play video games, if I'm not playing Minecraft or Diablo 3 or No Man's Sky, I'm usually playing a Super Nintendo or an NES or Atari 2600 or Sega Genesis game. Maybe an N64 game, maybe a PS1 game, but most of the time it's Atari, NES, SNES, Genesis. That's my bread and butter. So I still consider myself a gamer, but I don't take a label. I'm not a core gamer. I'm not a casual gamer. I'm just a gamer. You can kind of decide for yourself which type of gamer you think I am based on my lists, based on my preferences, but you don't know me that well because I only share with you what I'm willing to share. What I'm doing in the privacy of my own home that I'm not talking about is none of your business. So, yeah, there are video games I play religiously that I don't talk about because of whatever reason. Maybe I just don't want to talk about it. Maybe it's a game that I don't think is worth talking about. Or it's a game that I'm like, maybe I'm embarrassed to talk about it for whatever reason. Not likely the case, but it could be. Or it's something like I forget about it and I just don't talk about it because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that game for whatever reason. Because I play a lot of games, which is why I still consider myself a gamer, not so much a casual gamer. Because even though I don't like play games for like 12 hours a day, I do play throughout the week. I still put in a good 30 hours a week playing video games, and I space it out, retro and modern. It's debatable if you consider Minecraft retro or modern at this point because it's pretty old at this point. It came out in 2011, but also they keep updating it, so it's still pretty modern at the same time. So I don't know, whatever. It is what it is. Stay cool.